going to actually build a massive bridge across Suisun Bay. Look at that, Joe DiMaggio Drive. By the way, our general store, not looking operational anymore. You look through the gap here, or that one, the Sacramento Northern Rail Line, so it's that close to us. I guess it's about as close as you can get to walking back into some railroad history, right? Welcome to the outskirts of Sacramento, California. We are here along an old bridge. This is probably built in between 1911 and 1913, and this is part of the old Sacramento Northern Railway. I want to say this was in operation. This could have possibly been in operation as late as the 1980s, or at least parts of it. But most of this operation shut down in the 50s. We're going to get more into the history of that here in a moment. All right, and there's the old right-of-way off on our left here. All right, the Sacramento Northern Railroad. It was a merger of two separate railroads. One was the Northern Electric Railroad, which operated north of Sacramento, and again, it was, as the name would imply, an electric railroad powered by electricity. And that would, the northern section would operate between Sacramento, Marysville, Oroville, and one other town. Anyway, that was the northern portion. That began operation in about 1905. Oh, here comes another cool piece. We're going to stop and look at this for a moment. Here's a nice piece of history. The old right-of-way here. You can see where the bridge once went across the top. We're right next to the levee. By the way, the Sacramento River is just on the other side of that levee, beyond the old bridge here. Now, the Northern Electric Railroad would go bankrupt in 1914, which was not that uncommon for such ventures back in 1914, or at least in that era. But today we're going to focus on the southern portion of the Sacramento Northern Railway, which also, the southern portion also became acquired by the Sacramento Northern Railroad. It was originally, the south end was the Oakland and Antioch Railway, which that actually then became the Oakland, Antioch, and Eastern Railway. The Oakland, Antioch, and Eastern Railroad itself ran into some financial hard times, and by 1920, it was reorganized as the San Francisco and Sacramento Railroad. And a few changes were made, however, it remained unprofitable. And in 1927, it was sold to the Western Pacific Railroad. And then later in 1929, it was brought into the Sacramento Northern Railway. Okay, just to kind of put things in context, off to our left here, we're on top of a levee. Off to our left here, if you can see through the tree line, that is the Sacramento River. And we are entering the Delta, which is all this farmland you see out here in front of us. And our railroad that we're going to be chasing down today is off in that field over there, way out in the distance. So we're going to be crisscrossing the Delta a lot today, across a lot of farmland. I've been wanting to do this for a while. This rail follows a whole lot of just wide open land out here in the Delta, and this is my third visit to the Delta, and I thought, why not do something a little bit different? So we're going to do our best to follow this railroad, and there's really not much left. However, there's enough that we can kind of get an idea of just how remote this rail once was. Now, this rail line, the southern branch that we're going to be exploring today, it actually began in Oakland and went all the way to Sacramento. And again, originally this was nothing but electric rail lines, prior to the diesel, which we're going to get into that in a little bit. Left out of Oakland, kind of climbed the hills northeast out of the city, went through a tunnel. I think it was, 3/4 of a mile long, I believe it was, through the Oakland Hills, and then came out on the other side, on the east side, and then from there it went through, Walnut Creek, and then went up into Pittsburgh, and I think it was Antioch, and anyway, the industrial areas there in the Bay Area. So, and then that was prior to it crossing Suisun Bay on a barge, which is interesting. So we'll talk about a little bit more about that as well. once it crossed the barge onto Chip Island, on this side of the north side of Suisun Bay, it then basically has almost made a beeline into Sacramento. And so when I read about this railroad, I knew that I got to dig into this a little bit more. This is an interesting rail line. Again, all electric, at least at the beginning for for the first almost 40 years of operation. And then it started out as a passenger service primarily. And when that did okay for a while, off and on through the years, but as time went by, the rail line, I apparently discovered it was more profitable doing agriculture, and so that's why it carried the line beyond the 40s all the way up. Again, all parts of this rail line were used all the way up into the 80s, and the agricultural purpose of this line obviously was very seasonal, so it wasn't a year-round operation. By the time we got through the Great Depression, there was another thing going on. There were far more roads were being constructed, cars were becoming far more popular, and so all that cut deeply into the profits of the passenger service of the San Francisco Northern. The final passenger train ran on the northern section of the Sacramento Northern in August of 1940, and the final passenger train ran on the south section in June of 1941. So at that point, basically all that was remaining was the freight service. All right, just south of Sacramento, we have the Sacramento River right behind us. The branch kind of split and went into the little community of Clarksburg, which we're gonna go into that here in a minute. It's an interesting little town. But right now, what I want to show you is there was a stop that the Sacramento Northern had right here, and it was an old sugar mill. So we're gonna go see what's left of that. All right, I stopped here to grab a few photos for the archives, but yeah, looks like a back part of the facility. And we're going to go around front and see what we can see, but the train tracks would have come in. You see the plant here, or the remains of the plant. The train track would have come in right around the backside and kind of did a turn. And so you see that tower in front of us, and then the building in the distance. It would have been probably closer to that building off in the distance. All right, there you go, the old sugar mill, wineries. Farm to fork, uncorked. All right, I have to admit, this is a really cool building. Look at this. Wow. That is an impressive structure. Look at that. I wonder how much of that is still open to the public. Wow, look at this. Yep. I don't know if I mentioned it, but this was built in they didn't give an exact date, but they're saying the 1930s. And it was open as a sugar mill all the way until 1988. Now, going off the information I have, which I have to be honest, I'm not sure exactly how old or accurate this information is, but the area around the old sugar factory is, they're proposing to build about over 100 homes here. And if that is approved, or if it happens, it will be the first significant construction in Clarksburg since the sugar mill was constructed in the 30s. So we'll see how that goes. Hopefully they don't get overcrowded and they ruin the ambiance, because this is a really nice area out here. Where there is some history here, right? Wow, look at these old buildings. How about that? All right, so here's some statistics on Clarksburg that I was able to pull up. The population here, again, a few different sources. One says it's 366. The other says it's just over 400 that reside here. Now, curiously, 56.5% of the population are male, and about 44%, or just under 44%, are female. Okay, and per capita income, is about 55,340. The U.S. per capita is just under 30,000, and the California per capita is just under 32,000. So again, I wasn't able to find household income, but per capita would suggest folks got a little bit of money here, at least more than the about 80% more than the national average or national per capita. Now, here's another interesting statistic, which might suggest that if you're making good money living in Clarksburg, you might be doing all right, because the cost of living here is only 12% above the U.S. average, which is interesting because California itself is about 40% above the national average on cost of living. And by the way, the percentage of the population that's married, 81%. And I don't have the national average here, but I want to say it's just, 53%? So we're well above the national average on the number of people being married in the community. That is interesting. So Clarksburg was first settled in 1849 by a guy named Robert Clark. And in the 1920s, the Holland Land Company began subdividing properties here, or tracts here for sale, which, by the way, I'm liking this little community. This is cool. One of the unique things about it is that many of the families who initially settled here, their descendants are still here to this day. I can see why. You're close enough to Sac that you can get there if you need some of the conveniences, but out here, you're removed, man. This is like small town all the way, right on the river. This is small town all the way, man. I like this. All right, before leaving town, I want to see if I can locate something I found on Google Maps. I like this, Delta High School. All right, I don't have my notes on me, but I believe they call this the Clarksburg Oak Tunnel. That is cool. How about this? This is nice. Yeah, this is some beautiful country through here. All out here on the Delta. All right, so that was Clarksburg and the old sugar mill. By the way, that was a spur off the main line. So what we're going to do now is rejoin the main line and continue south towards Suisun Bay, down in the deeper down into the Delta country. Shorty's is out of business. All right, we made it back to the main line, and look at our fence posts here, some old rails. How cool is that? So this is the main line going back towards, it's really overgrown obviously, but right through here. And this goes back towards Sacramento. But here's what I want to show you. And here it crossed a really long bridge right across here. And that water, you can see the towers up here. I don't know if you can see the water or not. Let me zoom in a little bit. That is the Sacramento Deep Water Channel. And this actually goes from the Delta, which is off in the distance over here, through here all the way into Sacramento. So our bridge, our main line would have come out here, crossed the road, and then gone right across this field. From Google Earth, you can actually see where some of the bridge abutments were. So how about that though? That is cool. All right, so now we're gonna head off out there. We're now really getting down deep into the Delta. So let's see what happens. Okay, I'm trying to find out, and I have so far been unable to, and maybe some of you can help me out. But that bridge that went across the Sacramento Deep Water Channel, where we just left, was that called the Lisbon Trestle? And the reason I ask is because the Lisbon Trestle in 1951 collapsed while carrying a very heavy train loaded with steel. And when that bridge was rebuilt and reopened in 1954, the train was no longer, they did not put the electrical power lines back up, meaning that was when this area transitioned from from all electric power to all diesel powered engines. So anyway, just putting that out there. Maybe you can help me out. So in the meantime, we are on our way back towards West Sacramento. We're going to get on I-80 for a moment and head south, and then we're going to get deep into the farmland and the northern delta. So here we go. All right, we are a little south of Dixon here on off of Highway 113, and we're going to a place called Bunker. I just like the name of that, Bunker, and that is one big piece of farm equipment right there. Okay, guys, this is it. This is Bunker. I don't know if this was ever actually a community or if it was just a rail station. I don't know. But we're looking for the old right-of-way. And there it is. You kind of see the towers here off to the side. It's right through here. See this post right here in front of us? Right there. Look to the left of it. There's the old right-of-way right there. Headed towards basically almost a beeline to Sacramento. And that's looking south towards Suisun Bay. Yeah, and as you can see, the right-of-way here has been disc under long ago and repurposed for agriculture. All right, and there it is, right with this gate, headed towards Sacramento. How about that? Wow. And that's out looking towards the Suisun Bay, deeper into the delta. I don't know if that's showing up on your camera, but it is windy out here today, very windy. All right, I'm glad we had that second look there in Bunker. That little right-of-way section going towards Sacramento is a lot more noticeable than what the other things that we saw out there. And no sign of the electrical infrastructure, which would make sense because, again, it sounds like by 1951, the entire line, at least this section of it, had been turned over to diesel power. So, I'm sure at that time that's when all the electrical was removed. Okay, we're moving a little farther south now. I'm going to take you to another community here, and this is the first Y that I was able to see on the map, and WYE, where the main line was intersected with another line that would go to Vacaville and Travis Air Force Base. So, and it's right along the highway here, so it's going to be a little bit busy at traffic, but there's something else I want to show you out here. All right, I'll get a photo for you and put it in the video. But way out there, there's a bridge, and again, that's the main line right there. And by the way, that bridge crosses Lindsay Slough, just for a little fun fact. And here's our beginning of our Y. It crosses the highway and goes back towards, again, heading for Travis Air Force Base and Vacaville. I crossed over something earlier I want to circle back to so I can show this to you guys. And if you need any proof or definitive proof that the line's been abandoned, have a look at this. Again, that's going towards Vacaville and Travis Air Force Base. And if I didn't mention the name of that little community, it's spelled D-O-Z-I-E-R. Again, I don't know if that was a community one time or just a train stop, a whistle stop, but it's called Dozier, D-O-Z-I-E-R. So yeah, make of it what you will. All right, well, the pavement has ended, so that must mean we are rolling up on another crossroads here by the name of Creed, C-R-E-E-D. Yeah, interesting. There was a rock band that went by the name of that not so long ago. How about this, huh? Oh, wow, look at that. Probably our best sample yet of what the tracks once looked like. Look at this. Oh yeah, that is something. Look at the age of the ties down below the timbers. Wow. All right, and we're getting closer to the bay, you can tell, because the temperature is definitely cooling down and the wind is picking up. Back in the day riding this train, out here you had to know you were out in the middle of nowhere. And yeah, there are sections of this line out here that run arrow straight. The Western Railway Museum. I hope it's open. Let's go have a look. Okay, and I would be wrong on all counts because it's only open on Saturday and Sunday. And today is neither one of those. We'll continue on. All right, this is Little Honker Bay Road. Man, even if this wasn't railroad related, I'd have to come drive down this. By the way, what I didn't mention while we're back at that spot, Creed, is that was also another Y, and where another branch intersected with the main line. We were on the main line where we were at. The branch itself would have gone off towards Travis Air Force Base, and it looks like it just went to, it's probably a supply line or something. It just went to the back part of the base, but didn't go into town from there. So I mentioned earlier it's windy. Look at these power generators. All right, as you can see by the signage there, we are at the Garfield stop here. And I wanted to show you this. Now this section here has been restored, and my understanding is they're still giving train rides on weekends, and that's what the signage said at the museum. And I would have to say that's a current sign because these rails have obviously been used. They're looking pretty polished. But look at the electrical infrastructure overhead, the power lines. And I don't know if these are still 1500 volt like they were back in the day, or if they've reduced them down. I saw some of the original equipment was like it's 500 or 600 volts. Whatever it was, I just wanted to show you these power poles in the overhead. And same track, but we're looking out towards Suisun Bay. But isn't that something? Could you imagine all of this, even the freight trains, being powered by electricity? What an amazing piece of history. Boy, I don't want to make it a habit of sitting on railroad tracks like this, but yeah, this is worth stopping for. If you can't hear the wind, you can see it now. All right, this is Shiloh Church, and from the information I can gather, this was built in about 1876, and the community cemetery is out behind it, if you can see that. And this was built about the time that the little town of Bird's Landing was also built. There's a general store there and an elementary school. And we're going to be crossing into Bird's Landing here very soon. But I always wanted to see this. I was curious about the history of it. And we are about 3 miles away from the community of Bird's Landing. So it's interesting that they located the church and the cemetery so far out of town. But here it is. And how does this play into our railroad story? And right behind us here, let me zoom in. You look through the gap here, or that one. You see the windmills, and right beneath those is actually a power pole for the Sacramento Northern Rail Line. So it's that close to us. All right, we are creeping up on our final destination here. Let's get out of the wind and head to our next destination. However, before we go there, I want to take you for a quick stopover in the little community of Bird's Landing. Look at this old place. That may date back to 1876 as well, you think? And there is our right-of-way. See the gate in front of us, but behind that, through that tree line, there's a bridge. And I'll see if I can zoom in and grab a photo for the archives, but cool little stop. That is awesome. That's how you did it back in the day. I guess it's about as close as you can get to walking back into some railroad history, right? the wind is so strong you could literally hear it like swirling through the prop blades of these windmills. Seems like they got a good location for some letting Mother Nature do all the muscle work here on generating electricity. All right, and that right in front of you there beyond the stop sign, that is John Bird's General Store. Again, built in 1876. Wow, there's a few old buildings here, huh? All right, we're gonna come back into town in a moment, but I want to take you out here because I want to show you the old railroad tracks. All right, and there's what I wanted to show you. Still one of the old bridges here. I wonder if that's the original. I mean, even if so, obviously it's been refurbished, but yeah, I just wonder. But look at that. So here we are, Bird's Landing. Looking up towards Sacramento, long way away at this point. And now we're looking south out towards Suisun Bay. And I quickly grabbed a few photos for the archives, but that's about as close as we're going to get to that bridge. Maybe that is the original bridge, but even if not, the right-of-way has been here since about 1913, 1911, somewhere in there. That's amazing. And I'll show you a photo of that big warehouse off on the hill over there. That's probably been here long enough to have serviced the rail at one time. All right, let's get out of Bird's Landing and get a little farther on down the road. I was just noticing something here. You see these are newer power poles. Maybe they're bringing the line, the trains farther down the line here. We can hope. By the way, our general store, it's not looking operational anymore. But still fun to look at. So this is Bird's Landing. Okay, we're getting real close to Suisun Bay. All right, you guys, here we go. Fire Truck Road. I would like to know the history of that. Anyway, not important to our story. All right, this blue home on our left. This was basically the termination point of one of the spurs off the main line as the main line approached Suisun Bay. According to the map, it would have been more or less right down the road here or alongside the left. I'm thinking basically it was in the road itself, just looking at the map. But yeah, and I'm not seeing any elevation changes here. So it had to be along the road here, I'm sure. And I'm sure this building here on the left was probably served by that line at one time. And the right-of-way for our spur basically would have went straight ahead right through here, but it's so overgrown now you can't see it. But look, I want to show you this. Look at this whole place. What is the story of that, huh? Wow. That may have been out here and occupied as late as the 80s, perhaps, you think? Who knows? Wow. Let's put this in context here. See those big smokestacks or towers way over here? That is actually on the other side of Suisun Bay. Here you're looking at like Pittsburgh and I think Martinez over there. But here's what I want to show you, right? Oh, and before I turn around, let me show you this. And there is a right-of-way right through there. And you see beyond that the bridge over there, the old what remains of the bridge. I'm going to get some good close-up photos of that to put in the video and show you. There's our home that way, and now let's go right in between the gate post, and there's a right-of-way looking more or less north towards Sacramento. I didn't mention this in the video earlier, and I meant to. However, let me share this now, that the entire length of the southern portion of the Sacramento Northern Railroad, from where I left South Sacramento and went across Suisun Bay, where we're at now, into Pittsburgh, through the Oakland Hills, and all the way into Oakland, I want to say that the total distance of that was about 118 miles. And I read somewhere that back when this was a full passenger service, that the total ride time from Oakland to Sacramento, and the other way, of course, was about 2 hours and 45 minutes. So given today's traffic conditions, that's not bad, man. They could probably get some business if they were still operating into this day. All right, now the plan for today, and like all plans, it looks great on paper. I was going to get to this point here, put Louis in the air. It's about a 2 mile flight out to where the rail terminated at Chip Island. And then the freight cars would actually be loaded onto the ferry, ferried across to Mallard Island, and then brought ashore over there, where they would continue their journey into the Bay Area here or onto Oakland. And I wanted to put Louis in the air to fly over the ruins of that old docking port, or the port where they used to dock the Ramon. That was the name of the ferry, Ramon. Yeah, lots of flood damage for quite a few years now. The story keeps getting richer here. The wind is gusting so much, I'm not even going to attempt to put Louis in the air. I'm almost certain I'd lose him. However, straight ahead of us here, roughly about 2 miles, is Chip Island, and that is the ferry terminal for the ferry that once carried the rail cars from this part of the rail across Suisun Bay over into, it was Pittsburgh and beyond, and into Oakland. Now, the Oakland, Antioch, and Eastern Railroad actually are the ones that built those terminals. And they were considered, at the time, a temporary situation. They were going to actually build a massive bridge across Suisun Bay. Well, that never happened, because obviously that was far too expensive, and the money was just never there to do that. So they employed the ferry. Now, the first ferry was a gas-powered device. I think it burned within the first couple of months, something like that. So they replaced it with, and it was a wooden ferry, so it burned. They replaced it with an all-steel ferry named the Ramon. And so the Ramon became a permanent fixture across Suisun Bay. And apparently it was also a major bottleneck for transporting these rail cars across, and passenger cars as well at the time. Became a major bottleneck for trying to get these rail cars across Suisun Bay in adequate numbers. And so Ramon, even though it's a bottleneck, it would be a critical piece in transporting these rail cars for the next 38 years. And again, as I mentioned earlier in the video, it remained in operation all the way until 1951. And what happened at that time is they found alternate routes out of Stockton to basically avoid going across the Suisun Bay. All right, so what brought it all to an end? Well, a few things. One, it was the continued development of and construction of roads to all the farm sites and the markets. And of course, I guess the customers found, or the farmers found out, that it was, I don't know if it was more cost effective or more convenient, or maybe both, to just have your product transported by truck. That was one. The other I mentioned earlier is that the transportation, because it was ag-based, was very seasonal, and therefore with the loss of the passenger service back in the 40s, and now with the very seasonal ag business and the influx of trucks transporting the product, the profits just weren't there anymore. And the other thing I read was that they said a lot of these old plants just became obsolete. And so as they shut down and moved to different locations, they obviously didn't need the railroad anymore. And as I read there's very little of the right-of-way left these days. I know we saw just bits and pieces of it today, but there's really not that much left. So yeah, that's again why I wanted to get out here and have a look at it while what little remains is still here to be seen. This is it's hard to explain to you guys what this is like out here. We have traveled a lot of distance while I had the camera off just to get out here. So we're out here. We're out. It's hard to believe that over there where those stacks are on the other side of the bay, that it is swimming with people when it's so remote and desolate right where we're at. This is yeah, it's kind of surreal. Okay, I think that's where I'm going to leave our story on the Sacramento Northern Railroad. However, I didn't come this far without going to Collinsville. It's just a few more miles down the road, and I saw this almost by accident on Google Maps. It is in a peculiar location. It's this little outpost right here on the shoreline, the Suisun Bay. So I want to go look at that, but I did get a little bit of history of it. It's kind of interesting. All right, so it seems like the Collinsville was founded by a guy in 1859, I believe, by a C.J. Collins, and he settled on some government land where the community now stands. Now, by the 1870s, the town was booming, and they even had a cannery and commercial fishing that was going on here. Telegraph, a couple of general stores. They even had a hotel at one time, I think I read. Now, when the commercial fishing industry started to decline, that initiated the slow decline of Collinsville. And to add insult to injury, I guess PG&E at one time was talking about building a nuclear plant out here, and then that never did materialize. That was the story of Collinsville. Kind of a boom to bust town. Only here on the coastline in the California Delta. Now, one source I read said that as of 1963, there were only about 6 homes here in Collinsville. Looking at Google Maps throughout, I think probably for the last 10, 15 years, however far back they give you the photos, there's obviously a lot more than 6 here these days. But the main street here, yeah, I'll show you some photos of kind of the then and now. It's Main Street's seen better days, but it looks like there's some new building and some nicer homes going on closer to the shoreline. And so here we are. It's official. We are in Collinsville. Now this is just creepy. Oh my goodness. I thought that was somebody actually standing on the porch. It's not. Wow. And I'll show you some footage, y'all, where there were 2 or 3 homes over here at one time. Look at that, Joe DiMaggio Drive. This home is still here in some of those photos. But yeah, right here, there were a couple homes here that are long gone. And then this home down here on the end of the street, this is relatively new. So it's good to see that they're doing some investment here and making things happen. But yeah, definitely kind of an isolated outpost. And there was a home right here as well. In fact, you can see it, there's the driveway for it. I'll show you that as well. Yeah, there's development going on here, but it looks like it's all closer to the shoreline. Oh, look at this. Still got the chairs. Well, look, I appreciate you sticking with me to the end of the video. If you've made it this far. I knew this was going to be a challenging video just because there's so little remains of the old right-of-way. And of course, those seem to be the things that attract me the most, right? The ones that are the hardest to find. And with that, I'm going to go find some food and then get on my way home. So I appreciate you all viewing. I appreciate you being here with me. And we will see you in the next video. All right, take care.